more people come in, I know we're finishing lunch. I will say the disclaimer for today, I'm supposed to present alongside LaDonna. Unfortunately, she's not here, wasn't able to come. Just to be safe, to be COVID safe, she didn't come. So ideally, she would have been right beside me. She would have told about her work, and essentially she was the consultant that my co-op hired to actually help us walk through the DEI training. So today, I will say I'm honored to be here. This is my first time presenting, my first time being here, and yeah. I'm excited to share in our work. So essentially my role next to LaDonna was to parallel. Essentially she's writing her thesis, she's talking about, what does supply chain diversity look like? What does DEI look like, and how does that apply to food? So Weaver Street Market is essentially her case study. Once we hired her, we moved very, very quickly. One of our first steps was to diversify our supply chain, which can be applied in so many different ways. And I will take this time, honestly, throughout this conversation. If you've been in any DEI conversations, if you've started DEI conversations, if you've thought about it, if it makes you uncomfortable, let's make this that space. So I will invite all of this to be as collaborative as possible. Feel free to raise your hand, let me know if you have any questions. I'm gonna go into how Weaver Street Market did it. We're not perfect. We're still figuring it out. We're learning how to do it, what to say, how to say it. So ask questions, let me know. The crux of today's conversation is essentially moving the racial equity talk to a true action. Not just coming together and say, we really want to do it, but actually let's put some steps behind those words. So a little bit about myself. My name is Alana. I work with Weaver Street Market. I've been there this year will be 15 years. I've done everything from customer service to data coordination. Currently, I'm a member of the Equity Alliance, and I'm also our DEI coordinator. So in case you aren't familiar with Weaver Street Market, we are 34 years old. We are the largest grocery co-op in the Southeast. We have 4 retail locations, and we have a production facility that I'll refer to in these slides as our food house. So we make our own products as well. We have a bread bakery, we have a pastry bakery, we have a commissary kitchen. We do a lot of stuff. So we're all throughout North Carolina. We're only located in North Carolina. So when you see anything about Weaver Street, some people recognize it, some people don't. But it's important to me for everybody to understand we're also still making mistakes. DEI is very new, yet very old, so it's something that I'm hoping that when everybody walks away from this conversation, they're also just ready to take this conversation and say, how can I build on it? So, why we're here today is essentially what you read in the brochure. If we're serious about our co-ops being a force for racial equity in our communities, we have to look at who's getting the opportunity to build their financial stability and wealth through and with the co-op, not only by working at our co-ops, but through getting the opportunity to be featured vendors and sell products to our stores. Why is that important? Most times when people talk about DEI, when you talk about diversity, you're talking about your employment numbers. We want to see more black and brown faces, we want to see more black and brown customers, but we're really not talking about who's on our shelves. Cultural appropriateness, can I see myself as being a part of this place that I work? I've worked here for 15 years, half of the life of our store. We're talking about more diverse employees. I'm already here. But can I see myself in what we actually have, what we sell, what I use? I was raised in North Carolina. Do I use the products that are here, or am I here supporting this co-op mentality? So, before I get started, I'm curious if anybody has any particular questions that they're looking to have answered. If you walk in here today, you said, supply chain diversity, let's get it. I really hope she says this. It's totally fine if not. It's a huge topic. I will also say that. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. Yeah?
I think I want to learn about how to support black and brown farmers and producers who might need more tools or resources in order to get to the place that they can sell their co-op.
Mm-hmm. Great question. Yes. Yes.
So I think on that level too, we're actually working on developing that distance. But if it's a goal to have DEI across the entire business, including the supply chain, how much of the responsibility falls on us to, I mean, because obviously there are gaps. Like, there are certain parts of the supply chain that just are not diverse, are not inclusive, are sometimes offensive, and we can call them out, but you still need them. Like, how much of a responsibility is it on us to then go out and recruit and train? And obviously we can't do that. We're a startup business, right? But like, when we see those gaps, how do we overcome those gaps? Where they just don't exist?
Yeah, good question. Any other questions? I'm mentally cataloging all of this to make sure I hit it.
I'll say for me, like I don't come from the grocery sector, so I'm looking to learn all about that. I was wondering something you said about, you know, some are like offensive, and how do you overcome that? And the thing is, do you have to? What does need mean?
Is that our responsibility at all?
Yeah, like what does need mean? Like, you know, is there somebody else that does the same thing or provides the same thing?
Okay.
Or do you swallow it because you, because there's a feeling of need?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll be honest, these are all questions we asked ourselves. So I'm going to walk you through our journey. If I don't hit your questions, definitely say, hey, Alana, no. We're too close to the end. I'm not hearing myself from what you're saying. Hopefully you do, because we did all of that, every bit of that. We're still doing that. Currently, we're still having teams discussions where people are saying, we have this category and we don't know how to fill it. Are we good? Because it walks this very careful line of they don't exist. It's really hard to find the black cheesemaker. They don't exist. It's a generation that's going to have to be cultivated into that section. So, yes. All right. Follow me through. Now that you know a little about me, know a little about you, let's get into it. So I'm going to start with the question. Question for all of you. And I will say, if you heard me talking before you came in, you'll easily, very quickly know DEI is a very open space. DEI is a space where, what does it really mean? What does diversity mean when it comes to food? Food has the characteristic of a gathering space. It can polarize. Food is a powerful weapon, but it's also a really beautiful treasure. So my question that I would like for everyone to sit with as you walk with me through this journey is, what does it mean to you to be overlooked, misrepresented, or ignored? Take yourself out of your professional position, not thinking, well, if my company overlooks them or ignores them, but think personally. What would it mean if my entire 75 minutes I never looked at your table? I never made eye contact with you. Somebody asked your question, I didn't acknowledge when you said it, but I acknowledged when they said it. Or I just really acted like you weren't there. That is DEI. That's really what it is. It's not everybody's the same and everybody's going to do all the same things and we're all the same. That's not what it is. So, common vocabulary you're going to see in my slides. WSM, the Weaver Street Market, is where I work. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Oftentimes people do add a J. I haven't quite done that yet with our co-op. We're not quite there yet. The Equity Alliance. The Equity Alliance, I'll tell you a little more about them in a bit, but essentially it's an acronym. It means empowering quality unification and inverting the tribulations of yesteryear. GC is a game changer. Game changer, as defined by Weaver Street Market in our DEI journey, is a company or brand whose ownership is 51% or more BIPOC. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, or person of color. And finally, the definition that we all know, food. Food, of course, is what's on your plate, but food is also what surrounds you. It's the energy, it's your resources, it's what you're allowed into, it's what you're not allowed into, it's everything around you that your body essentially ingests. Now, why am I defining everything? Of course, we know some of these definitions. It's essentially to create a level playing field. Because coming in here today, I know what I'm talking about. game changers are. I know what the alliance is, but it's establishing that baseline and saying, we're all here, we all get it, okay, let's walk in this together. So, it's a lot of words here. Stick with me. Our journey started with the Equity Alliance. Who are they? Very unique to Weaver Street Market. So as you see on our timeline here on the right, May 25th, George Floyd was murdered. I feel like so many people know that date because so many people made moves after the murder of George Floyd. We did too. We put out a statement, we said, we don't stand for this. This was, I believe our statement said, this is modern day lynching. When I read it, I said, whew, we're using big words for our groceries. This is my job. I did not think this was going to enter into my job. In that internal conversation, we put out the statement, the board was excited. One of our black employees, a black male employee, said, so this is great, but are we going to do this every time someone dies? Every time a black man dies? And people said, oh, thank you so much, Weaver Street, for saying something. Oh my God, I feel so much, whew, this is great. And then a black female employee said, y'all didn't hear him. He just asked, are y'all going to do this every time? Because it's the next day and another black man died. So what about him? And a conversation went on for a little while longer, and another black female employee said, hey, wait a minute, wait. Y'all are not paying attention. And more non-black and brown employees said, oh, I don't know what to do, so I'm actually not going to say anything. I'm going to throw a heart emoji on this. Thanks for your time. This feels great. I was the fourth black Weaver Street Market employee. So at the time, Weaver Street had over 300 employees. Less than 3% were black. So when we speak, you pretty much know who we are out of our 5 locations. So it was a Sunday night, and I sent my message. I said, look, we're not doing this anymore. You want to make a statement? Make a statement. Tell me you care. So on June 8th, we had our first meeting. We started as the People of Color Alliance because we didn't know what we were. We were just 4 black employees that said, hey, can y'all do something more? And by June 11th, we sat down with our general manager and our board chair at the time, and we said, we need to change. This isn't okay. In that time since, we went from the People of Color Alliance to the Equity Alliance. Started just all lowercase and then turned into an acronym because we didn't just want to be seen as just equity. We're seeking more than equity. We want to be seen. 4 employees with collectively over 30 years of experience at Weaver Street Market. So the loyalty was there. We weren't saying we're going to quit. We weren't saying we're going to call the press. We're saying, do y'all really care? So together we put together this mission statement. Very long, but I am going to read it. This is the Equity Alliance mission statement, made outside of Weaver Street Market, not put together by our board or our GM. But this is essentially what held us together, 4 black employees. We come together to promote diversification with an aim to transform Weaver Street Market interactions with the community while keeping our grassroots small business intact and continuing to grow. As new generations of co-op workers and owners emerge, we hope to reestablish an economic system currently based on opportunity through oppression by becoming a window of change. We will begin this process of reconciliation on a sustainable, not simply heroic path, and create a co-op where all feel welcome to work, shop, and gather through equal representation of employees, vendors, products, and work policies, ending only with a full incorporation of these changes into the permanent company infrastructure. I'll tell you, when the GM saw this, we were pretty sure we were going to be told, you don't need your services anymore. This is heavy. This is like, we looked at each other and we said, hey y'all, we put oppression in this thing. How Ruffin will take this? We might be at McDonald's tomorrow. What's going to happen? So we sat this down and we said, Ruffin, this is what we're doing. This is how we feel. These are 4 employees. Ruffin said, well, what do we do? We started our DEI journey immediately. We hired LaDonna as our consultant because he was like, well, can y'all tell us? And we're like, no, we're not going to be that black kid in the history class. We're not going to talk about Rosa Parks. We're not going to talk about MLK. That's not for us. We just want to come to work, and we want to know that if our company make a statement, that they actually care. Where do we go next? What you see here on the left. Ruffin said, where do you start? And we collectively said, on our walls, literally on one of the walls at Weaver Street Market, it says, for the community, by the community. And we said, we're the community. I don't see myself on your shelf. Remember, I've been here 15 years. I don't have a shampoo or conditioner that I can use. I don't see any black vendors. I don't really even see that you notice me. I'm still here. I have really great coworkers. But how do you tell me to show up every day at work and give you my best when you can't even do the smallest? Who's your community? The community is not just the people that work here. Yes, let's get more black and brown employees. The community is not just the people that deliver. The community is everybody, and the community is who is allowed to sell on our shelves. Now in North Carolina, I'll say, Tobacco Road, I live in Durham, you've got Duke, you've got UNC. We have so many historically black colleges and universities. We have so many areas. We're an agricultural state. We have so many places where there's no reason why we don't have a presence. We also have a lot of very legacy relationships with our vendors. So we sell 100% beef from one farm. We sell a lot of our produce from a few farms. We sell a lot of our products from UNFI. We sell a lot of produce from Four Seasons. Not knocking them, but we're saying, how are we making sure that they're doing this? And why do we have to wait for the death of somebody for me to tell you I don't feel like I belong? So immediately, Ruffin said, what happens now? Because I feel like I messed up. So Ruffin is also one of the founders of Weaver Street Market. So he is looking at us in our courageous conversation and saying, oh my gosh. We immediately said, as we did a firm surveillance of everything that we do, we looked and we said, merchandising. We want to know that not only we're going to do this, we're not just going to find 3 or 4 products, we're not just going to find Partake cookies, we're not just going to find McBride Sisters wines, we're not just going to find what's showing up in Target, what the celebrities are opening in their big product boxes. We're going to do some work because we're a co-op. So the same way that we call our egg producer, farmer, and when I tell you we call him, like the man genuinely, he still has a landline. So I'm like, if we can have that patience with this particular person, why don't we have that patience? Now at the same time, after the murder of George Floyd, Black Farmers Market was big in our area. Every other week, they literally called the Black Farmers Market. They were either in Durham or Raleigh. The line was so long to get into the Black Farmers Market. I'm talking 2 hours in a hot July North Carolina sun. And people were waiting. Because they were out there, they just weren't out here. So immediately, we came together and we said, we got to do something. We know that we have to do something. Put our minds together after some really harsh words, and we said, we want an attribute. When people walk into our store, they come in because they know their product's going to be vegan, they know that it's going to be organic, they know that it's going to be local, they know that it's going to be all these things that we know people are coming and looking for. Where do we find ourselves? We know history. We know black land loss. Now that black farmers are coming back into the scene, are they being given the same resources? Are they being told, you're going to get a better dollar value if you are organic? Are we giving them the same patience? When we bring these products into our stores, are we saying, do y'all actually use this? Are we actually looking at sales? Or are we saying, we have this because everybody else does? We have over 300 employees. Why are our employees not shopping in our stores? So we asked that question. Are you not shopping here? Our employees said, there's nothing I use here. I don't see anything that I use here. So we created Game Changers. Why Game Changers? The Alliance actually came up with this name. We went through a few. We talked about the words that we did want to use, the words we didn't want to use. We settled on game changer essentially because when you say this person's a game changer, they're changing the game. They're doing something. They're doing something different. Very simple combination, but we also knew when we came up with the definition, that was where it was important. We were looking for companies and brands that were 51% or more BIPOC owned. That's hard. It's one thing to say, do you have somebody that's black or brown that can show ownership, but we all know history. It's very easy to look at a picture. It's very difficult to say, let's see your brand ownership. This particular definition was chosen also because it aligns with the minority business enterprise. So if you are able to say that your company is under the minority business enterprise, you're also applicable for larger federal grant funding. So it wasn't just saying, Weaver Street Market wants to make this name for you. This is what we're going to do. Because yes, we want you to be 100%, but we also know in the court of law, 50-50 means you're still arguing. 51-49 is much different. Who gets the business when all is said and done? That's where our importance fell. So where does this all go? It goes from conceptual, it goes to reality. What actually happened? So this is when we began tracking. One thing that we knew with Game Changers, it would put everything into regular conversation. So anything that you've learned about DEI, it has to be everyday conversation. I like to say, it depends on your proximity and the consistency on how effective your DEI is. Think of the people that you're affecting. I can't say, y'all, I'm tired, I don't really feel like it, I'm not gonna be black today. I can't do that. So I know if we talk about it every day, if every day the board asks for a report of our top grossing attributes, even if it's at the bottom, someone's gonna say, why are Game Changers at the bottom? It's no longer an idea. This is now in our point of sale system. When you walk into our stores, you're gonna see Game Changers. When we have sales, when we have our wine sale, you're gonna see Game Changers. When you walk into our produce section, you're gonna see Game Changers. So, perfect example here. When we first started, Game Changers on the left, so merchandising is basically everything except for our prepared foods. Our prepared foods are roughly 30% of our sales. Everything else is 60%. So imagine, we started, and this process was hard in itself, going through and saying, all right, how do we label? How does this go? What happens? Because when it comes down to it, you can't tell me if I'm black. You need to ask me how I identify. That's a hard talk. Especially when your alliance members are saying, I gotta go back to work. This isn't a full-time job. I'm not gonna go out here and tell y'all no, we are not the Black Brigade. I'll figure it out. How do you ask people if their product is organic? How do you ask people if their product is vegan? Ask them this, how do you identify? That was hard. I will say, in my current day, I am the only black support manager. So our top management, I am the only one. So I'm looking at a lot of white faces that are genuinely looking like, Ruffin, you gonna let her talk to us like this? Really? How is this gonna work? So what you see here, you see two glimpses of the same time period. 2020, Game Changers were 1.69% of total sales. Good? Yes?
Just quick, is this across all 4 stores or in one particular?
Across all 4 stores. Yeah. Yeah. In just 1 year, they were 3.7% of total sales. What changed? Accountability. Every time you pulled a report, for one, you had to look at 4 black people that said, y'all want to make a statement, so let's make a statement. What changed also was the conversation. Bringing in black and brown faces and increasing sales was not mutually exclusive. That conversation had to be done. Because of course we're looking and we're saying, our sales are good. It's COVID. Oh, this isn't really that time. I don't know. No. It's never too early or too late to bring in an organic potato. It's never too early or too late to bring in what we want. If our community said, we want to sell pig's feet tomorrow, which I could easily see in North Carolina. If they said, we want to sell pig's feet, somebody's going to go to our farmers and say, we need pig's feet, we need them right now. I don't care if they're organic or not, but I know we have customers wanting it. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the exact same thing. Why are we going to do that? Because it's important that we reflect our community. Community is not just the demographics around us. Community are the people that choose to work in our stores. If we're a co-op, we want first for the people that work here to know, for one, we hear you. We see you. It's a lot to know that you've been seen. And it's a lot to know that in just 1 year, and I'm gonna tell you, 1 year of hard conversations. I was CC'd on so many emails that said, well, I don't know how to ask this person if they're black. Yeah, me neither. I don't ask people if they're black. But I know we're going to do it. I know that we're going to create a survey. We're going to allow people to opt in or out of how they want to be represented. I know that we are going to say it's very important to us that we are representing a retail space that is not highlighted. And we're going to do it because we're a co-op and because we can. We're going to lead this change. We're going to be real about it. This is one glimpse. And I'll say this is my favorite story. So I didn't put her name up here just because I didn't ask her first. But this is probably one of our biggest successes, quite honestly. And I tell you this story because it went against everything the naysayer said. This is not going to work. Cut flowers, pretty big. Some people say nobody goes to the grocery store to buy flowers. They don't know my mom, because I swear she's at Harris Teeter every Wednesday, like, you got to get the carnations that aren't open. And Mom's not listening to this. So we would go to the black farmers market, and there was one particular florist, and she's like a whole show. She looks at you, and then she gets all these flowers together and makes you a bouquet, and you're like, this is the dopest thing I've ever seen in my life. They were $25. So I'm in this hot sun, waiting for some flowers, but like, I mean, I was happy. It was cool. So we took this to our produce merchandiser and we said, we want these flowers. That's how a lot of our conversations went. We want this vendor. We don't know how to do it. None of us work in merchandising. We don't know margin. We don't know like any, we just want them. Can we get them like, I mean, I can call her, we can probably get it delivered tomorrow. Oftentimes merchandising was like, it's not how it works, I gotta change sets, and go, now you gotta get your numbers up. Because I know there's a board meeting coming up, you gotta get these numbers up. So we contact this florist in October. She tells us, well, you know, I was gonna maybe go into a business in like 3 or 4 years, and we're like, no, we need you right now. We need you right now. We know that you have a product, we know that we want you here, what can we do? So she puts together this very quick package. She was graduating that November, and we said, we really need you in our stores. And we take it to our produce merchandiser. So cut flowers, I don't know about everybody else's co-op. They would list anywhere between $8 and $10. An expensive bouquet was about $15. She was retailing for $25. Now the Alliance didn't have an answer for that. Oh no, this is when we back away, we've got to go back to work. In this particular category, we had no game changers. So not every category will have a game changer. For one, it's a hard sell. Now mind you, we're taking a lot of risks. We'll talk about risks in a minute, because risks turn into reward. So in 2020, essentially kind of going in, now mind you, I mean, think of how many flower seasons you have. We're in North Carolina, people put flowers on the table just to have a good day. You've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, all of these commercial holidays. And we've pretty much got the same flower farms. We added her product, and she immediately came in at 8.5% of cut floral sales. Now, a couple things happened in this. Things that I'd like to see, I like to say the Alliance knew better. We had no idea. We just knew that we wanted to sell her $25 flowers, and we were going to do everything. We would call our friends. Hey, what do you need right now? Go to the grocery store and buy these flowers because we got them in and they're $25. So this happened. Total sales came in $16,000. The other pretty remarkable thing about this, now mind you, of course our produce merchandiser was like, my margin is shot. Nobody creates a margin for a $25 bouquet out of a group. You didn't come in here for that. You came in here hungry, and nobody's hungry for flowers. So cool. We put them up here, goes swimmingly. She actually only appeared on our shelves 8 out of 12 months. So nobody really buys flowers throughout the year. We knew that, but we didn't want to say it. So it turned into where we are right now. If you walk into any of our stores, you're going to find a game changer. What does that mean? It means that we're still paying attention. You can't stop paying attention. So what does it mean for diversity, for equity, for inclusion, the food supply chain, for bringing them in, for actually making a difference within your store? It means representation. So a few things that I'll actually show you. This is from our Raleigh store. A few things that we've done here. For one, we didn't just say we've got game changers in our point of sale system. We created an attribute. So I don't know if every co-op has the attributes, but like the V is for vegan, the O is for organic. We have this starburst. It was intentionally chosen. A couple other things that we have, they're probably way too small in here. We also have vendor cards. Vendor cards were very important to the Alliance because you're a co-op. And we realized that people absolutely love when you can come in and you can see the farmer that grew the product and you can meet the person doing the demo and you can actually interact, because if you've been to one of our stores, we're like every city's living room. People are there all day long, to the point where we're like, do you have a job or you just really love our food? Because it's weird. Pretty sure I've seen you my whole shift and I'm about to go home and you're still here. So we recognize the importance also of saying, you get to know our products at a higher level. The distal outcome was everybody got a vendor card. Why not? It's not just to say, we want this end cap full of black people, because that's not what we want. We want an end cap full of people. So when you walk past Pitcorn, you're like, it's a group of people about my age. That's pretty cool. I will say me, I love bright black. I don't know if y'all are familiar with bright black candle. Beyonce loves them, so I love them. Okay, right?
Yes.
They're actually made in Durham. They're right down the street from me. But what we noticed, in the end, representation mattered. It mattered not just for our game changers, it mattered for everybody. Kids were looking and saying, oh man, me and the bees? It's a little kid like me. Yeah, people began to relate to the product on a different level. So it started DEI. It started with, yes, this is what we're going to do. These are the people that we really want to highlight. But then it turned into, especially during COVID, when you can't have demos. We're trying to put things in people's online bags to make sure that they get these products. But now when you walk through our stores, when you look at our social media, we're speaking about our vendors differently. Not just game changers. We're speaking about our local. We're looking at our local restaurants that are now having to transition to products. We're saying, hey, come shop at Weaver Street. Hey, come look at what we're doing over here. We encourage our vendors to come into our stores. Look at the way we represent you. How do you feel? Tell us. We have had vendors say, you need to take that down in that store. I did not know. I need to approve your vendor card. That's cool. Absolutely fine. Because what we want, and I'll say we got this from LaDonna, our goal is that vendors walk in and say, how do I get on that end cap? Because I see people are all over this one. I want to be on that end cap. So that's our game changer story. I do realize that I didn't directly answer your question about what happens. Did I answer it? Okay.
I mean, kind of, but yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like you went out and found, which we do too, but sometimes there's not even that Black Farmers Market college student out there. And do we have time to foster that?
You always have time.
Okay.
That's a constant conversation that we have as well. You always have time. These are the intangibles. So you're always going to sell groceries. People are always going to eat. They're always going to interact. You always have time. So I'll say one thing that you don't see, you can't quite put in a slide, is what this did to our merchandising team. You have to be ready for a different kind of vendor. You have to be ready for somebody that doesn't know what a UPC is, somebody that's cooking out of their house, and you have to say, no, we can't, you got a dog, you can't, no, we can't sell your cookies. You've also got to be ready for that person that's tried so hard and just needs that conversation. So essentially, it slows down the process. I can't lie to you. I can't say everybody's going to come to you, be super ready. Oh my goodness, you overlooked these. Yeah, these, what you're looking at here, the bottom 4 shelves are all UNFI. Bright Black Candle is made in Durham. They're actually shipped internationally. So that was pretty easy to acquire, but this is the first time we've sold a candle for $25. The immediate was, we're not Bath and Body Works. We're like, okay, cool. When I tell you the Alliance called all of our friends and said, go buy this candle. We need to represent. But what we also found was that customers were coming in and they were saying, hey, we saw on Bright Black's website that you sell their candles. So that was also a different relationship that we weren't exploring. We've got this younger entrepreneur population. We've also got different people. We've got veterans now saying, hey, do you have a veteran-owned attribute? We do now, because that's important. We went through statistics. We said, what is the representation? What are these populations that just don't get a fair shake? You know, if you ink a deal with Nestle, you're good. If you ink a deal with General Mills, you're good. What happens when you ink a deal with Weaver Street Market? When you get in the door, because I'll be honest, a lot of times it's kind of like, I want to own a restaurant, until you own a restaurant, and you're like, nah, I gotta go back to school, this ain't it. It's that same thing. Since we have that power, and we have that privilege, and we have those loyal customers, people are gonna come and they're gonna say, what's this new coffee? What's this new coffee you have up here? Oh, it's actually, they're roasted by a group of Latinx women. You should try it. We now also roast this coffee in each of our coffee bars and in our break room in the food house. It's that purchase power. You've got to think of the large, you've got to think of the small, you've got to think of the representation. So it may start super quick. I mean, I'll be honest, go ahead and look at UNFI and be like, hey, we want all this right here. We want all that. But so much of it changed for us when it actually came to diversity, when it came to equity. Equity is, what are we purchasing? What are our sales? How do we quantify sales? Having those conversations. Is it more important that we purchase a certain amount or that we sell a certain amount? And even now, the conversation that we're having, because these are now going to be system changes, we've got to go into our production software and say, so if we purchase over $1 million in costs of goods from our food house every year, can we redirect 3% of that? We can, but what does that mean? That means that you're not getting bagged spinach. That means that you have to include prep time because you're getting spinach off the farm down the street. That means that you have to show them, you gotta package this. You gotta do a little better, because I'll be honest, as a girl that does not like nature, farming ain't easy. Going outside, I'm like, oh, this is too much. But you're dealing with a different kind of vendor. So it's really asking yourself that question of, who deserves the benefit of the doubt? When you order a case of wine from the big wine distributor and all the UPCs are wrong, do you say, I'm not ordering from them anymore? Or do you say, hey, everybody change your UPCs? So why is it different when you order from a small vendor down the street that didn't have paper because of a supply shortage? So those were the questions that we asked ourselves. I will also say, for me, the truth behind it, you're not gonna find it all out there. But when you find it, you have to spend the time. I will also say, as a Black female in the food industry, it's okay to say no. It is okay to say no. Not everything can or needs to be sold. We're not heavy in the hemp right now. People are asking about cannabis. It's okay to say no. What's not okay is not answering emails, acting like this program isn't actually happening, and not providing the resources. For us, that's probably been the hardest part, mostly because it's hard. It's different. When you do it every day and you get used to that conversation, it's a little bit easier, but it's also really difficult to say, we're good on candles. We're good. Sorry, you're the 8th candle maker, but we know who can actually sell candles. Weaver Street itself has helped to open 3 sister co-ops in the area, so leaning on those resources as well and saying, hey y'all, this is something we're doing, so we really want to increase their capacity. Can y'all sell these candles too? This is how we're doing it. This is what we're doing. Because anybody that knows co-ops knows the proof is in the pudding. If we're going to collaborate, if we're actually going to make this happen, it's asking these hard questions to say, I got this popcorn, nobody's buying it. Oh, because that happens too. Nobody's eating this much popcorn. But when you put it on the front, you say, hey, Netflix and chill next to some cheese doodles? Oh, I got you. Here we go. So it's those mistakes too. It's allowing yourself to fail forward and do exactly what you would do for the legacy relationships that you have. When someone comes to you and say, hey, you know, we want to sell deviled eggs. Okay, seems a little strange. But if our legacy egg farmer says I want to sell deviled eggs, you're going to say, well, try them on a salad bar. Who are we allowing to receive the benefit of the doubt? So, I'm going to stop here for a minute and see if anybody has questions, or if I answered all the questions. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of veggie backing off the other person. Just about like, are there any specific resources that you've provided to vendors who may be like almost there, or like do you have to have a ready product? Because I hear y'all have a packing facility too.
We do. I will say there's no book. There's no way to do this. So internally, we've done a lot of work in building genuinely from the ground up. So I don't know if all co-ops are like this. Most of our SOPs are in our head. Most of our employees have worked here for over 20 years. So if I go in the kitchen and I'm like, all right, cool, show me what you do, they're gonna be like, all right, this is it. I say, okay, where's that written? And I'm like, throw the rest of it out of here. Same thing with merchandising. So I say, what is our process? We all know intrinsically our product policy, but what is our product policy? What's our product policy for hair care? What's our product policy for treatment of your employees? So a lot of it came from, what do we want, and what are we able to do? Now, COVID, the extension of resources, it's really difficult. A lot of it genuinely came from merchandising, putting what they do on paper. What do you need? When somebody comes up to you and they say, all right, I've got this product, what are the first 10 questions that come in your head? You look at the packaging, you look at the labeling, is it attractive? What's your price point? What's your cost structure? What's your cost of good? What's your retail? Where else are you selling it? What's your volume? That's what a lot of our small vendors had no idea of. It's one thing, and I mean, we do have, I like to kind of tier it. So we've got the large scale. So we've got the partake cookies. You know, we've got the pit corn that's being sold in all of these different markets. And then you've got people that have a few wholesale accounts. So maybe they're not immediately close to you. Most of our vendors, luckily, were pretty close to us because we went out. I mean, we were a search team. We were like product detectives. Yeah. We were in everybody's stores like, wait, where's that from? Take a picture, we got this. But we also found a lot of times, because we were looking in small markets, if you're in Target, you're good. If you're in Walmart, you're good. And also, we can't compete with Walmart. We really, why try? You know? And they're also, I think that's also very important, understanding what you can and cannot do. We're not that Walmart person. If you want to be down the street and you make sour cream and you're selling it in pallets to Walmart, we're probably not going to be able to compete on your sour cream. But a lot of it genuinely was having that conversation and saying, you're almost there. And also the Alliance having that conversation with merchandising, because there's a conversation to be had and a way to have it. There's a way to say your product is almost ready, but not quite there. And when I tell you, we had samples over samples, we had packaging that was falling apart, we had so many different issues. And essentially, I will say, as probably the most vocal person in the Equity Alliance, I was like, why is it different? I'm looking at all these other packages. Somebody just sent you beef jerky and half the packs were open. Did you contact them? So why are you not having a conversation with this person? So most of it genuinely came from what do we currently do, a true assessment of what we actually do. What do we look for when we see this product? And then what conversation do we need to have? A lot of that has been our development in saying, when we go back and talk to this vendor, say, who's your market? Currently our vendors come through, they initially talk to myself or a person in the alliance just to say, all right, you ready for this? Because we're about to Shark Tank this real good. Bring your products, be ready. Get all of these, and it's like a Shark Tank. It's like, okay, what's your product? I've got these candles. Is there like a candle factory somewhere? Everybody making candles now. Like, you got another sourdough? Like, I get it, COVID, but come on. So a lot of it was that, and then it was also having that conversation with vendors because we had a lot to learn too. We had a lot of legacy practices. So making sure that our purchase orders had the delivery address of our stores. If you've worked with us for 20 years, you know where we are. We tell you, hey, we're on Hargett Street, you know, right there, like a couple blocks from the train station. You remember where the old train station was, like the new train station? That's how our vendors were learning where we were. But when you send an electronic purchase order, I had a vendor call and say, I know that y'all placed this order a week and a half ago, but I don't know where to drop this off. There's no expected delivery date. It's getting out of our ways. It's removing yourself from that system of this is how we've always done it, which actually forced us to level up because a lot of our legacy vendors were like, you know what? You actually never did ask me. Yeah, I want to be marketed as a family-owned business. I feel really good about the fact that I'm going to pass this down to my kids. That felt great. When they walked in that store, when they delivered, because you're not only educating your customers, you're educating your staff. And they see that person come in the back door and they're like, hey, so Lily Mills, your daughter's taking over? That's pretty dope. We got a woman running a, okay, let's get it. These were questions we weren't asking before. We just wanted to know when's your product gonna be here, how long is it gonna take, what's your lead time, what's your cost of goods, let's get it on here. Can we get a discount? So it was a lot of those conversations, and then even further than that, saying, we have flowers, can we put it on sale? We've got everybody else in the category on sale. Sale for a small vendor can sometimes take you down. So it's having that conversation and really reinvigorating that conversation about co-ops, and we pay a particular wage. Our employees receive benefits, but we also know somebody sat in their kitchen and put these flowers together, that's why they're $25. How do you communicate that to your end customer, and how do you communicate that to your staff? You've got to treat these things like solid gold when they come in. You've also got to treat that vendor like solid gold. So DEI for us, I see, it was very helpful because it really brought a life back to, we're a co-op and we can do these things. We don't have to call corporate, say, hey, we found these people. But we did have to look back and say, what are the conversations that we have with new people? They're not in a catalog, we don't know where we're gonna find this next person, and now we're opening this portal to say, we know that we ignored you before, because we ignored a lot of people, a whole lot of people, and we had to eat crow. As my dad used to say, make your words soft and sweet, because you might have to eat them. We ate them all. 2020 and 21, we ate them. We were eating good. But it's having a lot of that conversation and saying, all right, and then also asking for feedback. We created teams of people so that these new vendors would feel comfortable to say, so I didn't really want to tell your head merchandiser, but y'all haven't paid me my invoice. It goes down the pipeline. A small vendor can't wait 30 days, can't wait 60 days to get paid. It is talking to finance and saying, what's our possibility of doing a net 14 for the next 6 months? What can we do? We buy a lot of packaging ourselves. Can we sell packaging to them at cost? So it changed the game completely, and what we're actually seeing, so that particular vendor, she actually only sold with us for 1 year. From her profit, she actually opened a brick and mortar. I will say the Alliance is very sad because she now teaches floristry classes. She works in the agriculture community, and she does events. So we won't have her again, probably not for a good 5 or 6 years, but the story that we know that our community is able to tell is, I did it through Weaver Shoe Market, and that's the story that we're looking for. Because we walked up to her and said, I see you. How big do you want to get? we're not huge. We're not going to order pallets of like, ooh, we can't do that. But we know that we have customers that trust us. And when you trust us, we trust you to really digest the story of our community. This is now our community. Social media says, hey, where's your product? It's down at Weaver Street. It's like, oh, that feels pretty good. So yeah, did I answer your question? Yeah. Okay, good. Yes?
You've mentioned a couple times that your equity alliance is for of the black employees.
Mm-hmm.
What about the other employees? Have you ever wanted to expand it or attempted to, or and why just 4?
Yeah. So 4 just happened very naturally, very organically. It was just 4 of us.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I've gotten that question a lot because people are like, oh, what about more? 4 has been just kind of our core. So within the Equity Alliance came a lot of struggle. It took us about 1.5 years to recognize why we didn't let people in. And it genuinely came to the conversation of, we were hanging out pretty much trauma bonding.
Mm.
It was a lot of like,
Morning.
yeah, I mean, it's hard. We all went through the same event, and it takes a lot to press enter to your GM and the board and everybody that you've got to go in and look at. You're already tired, you spilled coffee in your shoe, now y'all want to make a statement and have a whole moment of silence. I really just want a day off, but I can't because it's Saturday. And it's, no. So we all came together and said, why are we not letting anybody else into our space? So it took a while just for the 4 of us. So currently where we are, we've essentially created an affinity group, starting with black employees, knowing, we're just 4 people trying to figure ourselves out, but creating a group, kind of an employee pocket to where people feel like, yeah, this makes sense, I can be here. The Alliance itself serves for us more of a safe space, a space where you can just kind of have that conversation. We invite people in instead of exposing ourselves. It took us a good while to even figure that out. But we are actually in the process of creating more employee affinity groups for the exact same reason. One, to create that safe space, because with each of us comes that historical background as well. So when I come to work, I bring life with me. I can't just drop it at the door and say, whew, nothing hurts. I'm bringing life. And we're also bringing the policies that haven't changed yet. So we are bringing the fact that as a company, we're working on microaggressions. We're working on, how are you taking retaliation out on me because you feel like I'm an angry black woman and all of these things. And now my company is saying, here's one day every week where you can just unload. This is your space where all I ask of you is that you innovate. That was huge. That's something life hadn't afforded us. So the fact that you're gonna pay me to dream, I'm like, I thought Toys R Us closed, but this is it. So a lot of it became that. So it also became, and then I think for a while it also became, it had to be true. A lot of other employees were like, how long is that gonna last? Okay, yeah, this is gonna go on for a little while. So ideally, we'll have small pockets. I will say the Alliance will likely go down in the history books as 4 people, but truly, I think our long-term goal, I didn't include it in here, but we never created an end statement, just to essentially say this isn't over. We've got everybody, we've got all of these employees, and to say that yes, we want to have this black and brown group over here, and we want to have these people over here and these people over here. Instead, we want that to be our whole store. We want you to come into work and just be like, whew, life ain't it, y'all. I'm not doing it. I just want to come in here and be happy. I want to sell some food. I want to see some vendors. I just want to live my life. And I want to know that when I walk in here, there is a space that this company has created where all I'm asked to do is innovate and create. So our long-term goal is that that's every employee, including, to be honest, including our admin, including, we're very white male dominated, but we're also very aggressive. We're very over-talking, this is what we're gonna do. So really just kind of saying, hey, you can be quiet. Everybody can be quiet. But you can be quiet and you can be loud, and who do we elevate and who receives the benefit of the doubt? You can come as yourself. Yourself sometimes is just tired. Yourself sometimes is over-caffeinated. So the Alliance starts 4 people, Ideally, it's our entire employee population.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
The picture that's on the screen right now, is this in every store?
So each store has actually, we started with 80 caps in every store, but each store has updated it based on their customer shopping habits.
Okay, so it's on the shelves too.
It is on the shelves, yeah. So each of the game changers themselves has one of the tags. We do have game changer signs that basically accompany the set, but yeah, the products are on the end cap, but they're also, that's one of the things that we had to do. We're not just gonna be an end cap. So you're not just gonna get this right here. You're gonna be on the shelf because ideally we don't want to say, go buy this because they're black. We wanna say, go buy this. Our end goal is to shift customer loyalty. When you come in for popcorn, you come in for popcorn. The same way, when you come in, you don't say, oh, I wanna buy these strawberries and not these. You come in to say, I want strawberries. I want this farmer's strawberries because I know that they've got really great strawberries. So yes, these are here, and then they're also included in our displays. So when we make seasonal displays, kind of any suggestive marketing, we make sure that each time we do include a game changer. Did I answer your question? Yes.
I have two questions. I'll
Of course.
ask one first, and if there's time, I'll come back to the other one. My first question is was there a goal set for like the sales volume for game changers and or number of vendors? Like how did you make the growth is amazing, and like is there a point when you're like the finance staff or something is going to be like, okay, well that's it, we hit our goal and like no more growth, or is it an endless pool?
We do have a goal, and it's 100%.
Great, love that.
Yes. Yes. We have 3 top attributes. It's part of our board directive now that the GM reports to the board, but our top 3 attributes that we're really highly promoting are local, co-op produced, and game changer. Yeah. Yes.
So coming from someone that's on a startup board right now, and you coming from been established for a long time, I guess first kind of question would be, how did the board react once you guys did start actually bringing these ideas to life, and then is there something that you wish the board now would either get aligned with or do to help continue this?
So I'll say the board was separate. This was all operations. So initially, and I will say I'm also the chair of the board. We're many a hat. So I wasn't on the board initially when this happened. The board chair at the time was part of constructing our initial statement, so he was excited. He was like, yes, this sounds great, this is fantastic. The board itself had not adopted DEI into their practices though. So there was that difference. Operations immediately said, who are we hiring? We need a consultant. The board said, well, we're good. Well, that's operations. Y'all please fix that. That's a bad look. Do better. But what essentially happened, so the alliance was meeting with the board chair, which was a different conversation than meeting with the board. We actually never met with the board in its entirety. I will say for me, coming from board speak, what I would have wished, it wouldn't have affected operations as much. Board and DEI for us has been more policy and governance, making sure that it is as inclusive as possible, but it really doesn't affect sales. So the board didn't have a reaction to say, whoa, what are y'all doing out here? We of course did have customers that are saying, why are all your vendor cards black? Like, why are you making a big deal about this? This is, come on, like, let it blow over. I know the alliance didn't hear much of anything about it, mostly because it really was a thing of, we know it's the right thing to do. And having that conversation of, just walk past that end cap in, see you tomorrow. If it hurts you that bad, see you tomorrow. And then also being willing. I mean, the alliance said from the very beginning, if we do have customers that can say they aren't comfortable with the fact that we are looking at industry standards, we're looking at who's represented and who's not, and we're saying, you don't see a lot of minority-owned businesses. You don't see a lot of veteran-owned businesses. You don't see a lot of LGBTQIA-owned businesses. We want to make sure you at least see it in here. So as often as you shop here, you're going to be shopping those products, and it's going to make it to the center aisle. So you're not even going to know. You're just going to say, huh, I really like this open water. Cool. Oh, that's who owns it? Yeah. So we didn't get much of any kickback at all from the board. And so, yeah, we didn't really have any feelings. The board chair has always been open. He's super excited. He's our bread bakery manager. So he incorporated a lot of DEI practices into his work. He changed, for one, he had a lot of deeper conversations, not only with his staff, because he has a pretty, I think most of his staff is from South America. So he has a very rich cultural history within his staff. But then he was the one that had the conversation with our grain growers, not just to say, hey, tell me a little about yourself, but also, do you think maybe if we encourage some of our farmers in the area to grow some grains, y'all could use them? So really closing that loop and saying, how can we impact the community? And as LaDonna would say, what's the difference that's gonna make a difference? How can what we're doing be more effective so that if somebody says, I'm not gonna buy this stuff, you can still buy it somewhere else and it's still gonna make that distal difference. Yeah. Did I answer your question? You did have another question, Dan. Oh. I'm close. I have 12 minutes.
Oh, me again? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm wondering if you noticed any impact, or I guess the first part of the question is, do you all track racial demographics of membership in the co-op? And no. And have you seen, okay, so maybe there's not a way of tracking this, but wondering if you have maybe anecdotal information about how this might be changing shoppership.
Yeah, very anecdotal. Mostly because that's been our conversation. How do you track your shops? We go through such great measures to talk to our companies and our brands. How do you identify, and do you want us to tell people? I can't out you if that's not how you want to be seen. So, and we have had, hey, do you want our customers to know that you're disabled? And they're like, no, don't take pity on me. Put myself with everybody else's. So in the same way that we do that, there's no real way. And I'll tell you, it's probably 3 out of 4 of my hours each morning in saying, how do you track your change in customers? It's hard. It is very anecdotal, and we just talk to our staff. Who do you see? Who do you see in these stores? I will say, as a Black female, I've heard from just about every Black staff member to say, I don't know what y'all are doing, but people like this stuff. People are actually doing this. So a difference that we're finding with these new products especially is social media is everything. So as we talk to our vendors, we say, hey, can you tell them that you can find it at Weaver Street Market? So we are also now receiving the customers of these brands, especially the local brands. When you're local, you're selling your stuff in markets, you know your demographic. We have a new farm, Green Heifer Farms. I'm going to give her a plug because I think she's sponsored by Patagonia. She is a local Black farmer in our area she basically grows medicinal herbs for teas. And she came and said, I know women are using my product, Black women especially, because they want that more homeopathic. They want something that's not going to be a lot of medicine, but they notice that their bodies are changing. We said, can you please let people know? Let them know where to get your full line of products. We're always going to have it immediately. Because of course, we're linking on social media. We're seeing what's happening. More and more of our employees are saying, there are more Black people in here. Our customers are saying it. The response is, especially, so I'll say the Alliance is pretty behind the scenes. We definitely don't shout out loud, hey, guess who I am? But when people know who we are, they say, thank you. Thank you for bringing in some products that look like me. Some are huge. Everybody has honey pie. I don't even know if I should mention it because now they've changed a few things. But everybody had honey pie. And so people were coming in and they were saying, hey, it means a lot. It means a whole lot. We're getting customer cards that say, I'm so glad you did this. I'm so glad I see this vendor and it just feels different. It feels different shopping here. It feels different that you're speaking on these communities, but also you're normalizing the talk. You're normalizing the fact that nobody else is really trying to go hard. Yeah, we're trying to go hard. It's not a bad word to come in and say, we did it wrong. It's not a terrible thing. We did it wrong, but you know what? We know better, we're gonna do better. So, to answer your question, no, there's no tracking device, there's no hidden camera to say, oof, Yep, that was 7 in an hour. No, it's looking at who's in our spaces, and it's genuinely just going into our stores and saying, is this our community? Because we know our community. We know who attended those wine shows. We know who went on the farm tours. We knew who was there. So being able to see, and it's not just the race or gender, you see more people with kids, you see younger people, you see older people, as we speak on, hey, we've got some veterans. We've got veterans that are like, thank you. Like, nobody really talks about the fact that, nobody talks about veteran-owned businesses until Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and everybody says thank you and I'm sorry. But now you're saying there's a life past me serving. So, yeah. Long answer, but
Thank you.
yes. Yes.
This might be a bigger question that you don't have an answer for, but kind of going back to the honey pot.
Mm-hmm.
Has Weaver Street figured out what the conversation looks like when a company changes?
Yes.
Yes. We're having that conversation with our own group within our co-op, and trying to figure out what does that look like and what's fact, what's real, what's not.
Yeah. So I will say, with DEI comes in changing culture. That's probably been, especially since the beginning of the year, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. DEI changes your culture changes your DEI. So with DEI has come, this new invigoration of let's talk. Let's give your suggestions what's happening, because who wants to read the news every day, all day? So a lot of times, especially, we just had a post about Honey Pot. An employee said, hey, look at that, are we gonna sell this anymore? Like, what's going on? It's a richer conversation now. Before it was our small 3-person merchandising team that said, hey, take this off your shelf, put it in your break room. Now it genuinely is that conversation of, where did we pin our product policy? Because now we've got this big organization, and they're saying, so we're changing some things. And people said, well, they're not organic anymore, but they're still a game changer. So there's still that education behind it to say, I hear you. What's going on? So I will say, and Ruffin will probably hate me, especially if he watches this, I have essentially said to him, instead of thinking of our store employees as just people that come and put things on the shelves, they're our brand ambassadors. We want you to be involved and say, hey, I saw this press release. Oh, and it's happened a lot. Amy's Kitchen? Oh, come on. But it's that makes us a co-op. It's when people put on teams and say, hey, this other co-op's got this sign up here. Are we going to hold them? What's going on? Because we know when a customer walks in the door, they trust us to do the hard work. So it has been that conversation, which always involves, well, why them, not them? When do we say we're not going to carry it or we're going to carry it, and, our head merchandiser is contacting the heads of all these different places and saying what really happened. So the conversation is not pretty, but the conversation also holds our partners to a higher standard. And it basically says, Weaver Street has 4 stores, but we also have the loyalty and the trust of our employees and of our customers. So the conversation, I'll say overall, it's not pretty. It's definitely not pretty. But it does come to the point where, and we have had to take some products off the shelf. It's just kind of been like, well, we can't do it. I mean, we've had local vendors that, all of a sudden you're using a sprinkle that isn't clean on your cupcakes, and we find out, and it's like, sorry. Some stuff is, sorry. We'll help you find a clean sprinkle. And then some of it is, especially with something like Game Changers. If something is sold, then it's like, if Johnson & Johnson now owns this, it's no longer a Game Changer. That's the truth of the matter. So what do we do then? We can still sell it, but we're not going to sell it as a game changer. So we also deal with that as well. What happens when TG Floristry no longer sells flowers? Because she rocked it that first year. Do we go and find another flower vendor? Because how do we maintain our sales? We still want to get to 100%. So, there's still that line of, we want our community to do well, but we also have to realize that ideally everybody will graduate from us. We would love to see her, doing flowers at the White House, something huge, but that does take away from our sales. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you described your process and how the Equity Alliance formed and pushed into this work and made it happen. If you were advising a startup who has no structure yet, or has the opportunity to create your dream structure for doing this kind of work in the store. What are your thoughts on that? In other words, should there be maybe that's kind of what was the term, affiliation groups or that you used?
Affinity, yeah.
Affinity groups, sorry, within staff, or so should there be this group that's not the purchasers, the GM, or how would you suggest a startup start?
Yeah. I would say my personal suggestion, coming from the DEI world, write it into policy. You need it in policy immediately. So it can come from a group that just hold a passion. I'm the only one of the 4 that does DEI every day. The other 3 work in the stores. So, you're just in there doing your thing. I have those conversations every day. It has to be in policy. So the reason that Game Changer is successful is because every time somebody pulls a report, you gotta look at Ruffin and he's gonna say, why are your Game Changer sales not higher? What's going on? Those are some real conversations. They probably can only get but so high in beer and cheese because it's really difficult. But if it's in job expectations and your pay depends on it, you're gonna figure it out. If you know you haven't gotten a raise in 3 years because you're really not growing product sales and what your expectation is, you're gonna find a way. Even if you call somebody else and say, look, I need a vacation, help me out, figure it out. There are a lot of things that you can do to make it better. There are a lot of things that you can also do to just incorporate Game Changers in general in what you do. You're looking at, these are our frontline sales. This is what you see. You can change who delivers your trash bags. You can change who gets your aprons. You can change so many things about your company structure. So right now we're essentially saying, what does it mean for the food supply chain? But your food supply is who is allowed to actively participate in your system. So it could be, what company is cleaning your stores? Make sure, ask them. So our Game Changers are only for companies and brands. We purposefully did not include distributors. We don't include our outreach organizations. We just aren't there yet. We aren't quite there with what we're doing here. And to move on, we've got to know we've at least got a good structure. So we're still asking ourselves those hard questions of, what happens when a vendor says, take me out of this list? I don't like the way that you're speaking on this. Or I just don't want to be known as this. I know that this is how y'all are doing well, but it doesn't sit right with me. We have to work through those feelings. So DEI is more than the process, but it's also how do you have those hard conversations? When is it okay to just be like, Alana, I need you to sit in this conversation with me? Which is actually what's happening right now. And going to a farmer and being like, so, yeah, we didn't work with you for 10 years. I don't even remember why we were mad. Who likes that conversation? Like, can we get a beer and forgiveness? Because it's coming through, and when you make the decision to put somebody or not putting somebody on your shelf, you're deciding whether or not they eat. In a lot of situations, you decide whether people live or die, especially when it comes to farming. Farming is hard to do. So when you sit with somebody and say, yeah, no, we're going to go with these people that we know are selling large volumes to all the restaurants and to everybody, we actually don't want anything to do with you, you can find a way. If you just provide employee lunches, it's going to be those small incorporations. Do it huge. Say, hey, these are all of our store purchases. We want to start with just 2% of all of our purchases. Where are you buying your shelves? Is there somebody in this community that supplies shelves that can deliver them in a truck? And I mean, that's genuinely what it takes. We are at the point, luckily, where we can go through product lists and do have this affinity group that can come together and say, hey, we found this new place. I mean, we're looking Pride Road in Georgia. You've got hibiscus tea, let's get it. But yeah, I would immediately say, write it into policy, create it as an expectation, and immediately provide accountability. Provide that periodic reporting, have those conversations, and when you feel stuck, reach out. Weaver Street's doing it, reach out to us. All right, any other questions?